Today is a brand new day. And the standard word on for today is Public Speaking School. Children, I would like to welcome you to our second public speaking school. As you already know, I am extremely proud of you all, especially my student speakers for today. Our first public speaking school went very well. I know our second one is going to go very well as well. So I'm going to give you guys a rundown of what the program will be today, and then we will go ahead and get started. So our first talk will be done by a substitute. Our first talk will be the first president, and that public talk will be given by Mr. Richard Eccles. Our second part, Digging for Historical Gems, will be taken care of by our dear friend, Miss Sydney Grant, whose Papa is in the back. Can we get Papa Grant on camera? And last but certainly not least, our historical reading will be given by our dear friend, Mr. Aser Waldemichael. So, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and get started. So, we are going to go ahead and invite up our first student speaker for the evening, Mr. Richard Eccles. And I am going to be giving the public talk, Our First President. The first president of the United States was a man by the name of George Washington. Now, George Washington's history is very interesting when you look at the politics of today. George Washington was not something called a career politician. George Washington was not of noble birth. George Washington was a man who was a soldier. He fought in the French and Indian War, and then he fought in the Revolutionary War. He was the general of the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War, and he is known for being a hero in the American Revolution. Now, when we contrast that to presidents that we have had, whether you look at Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and now Donald Trump, you look at their histories, they were not these military fighters who then became the president. So right there you can see that George Washington was already a different type of president than what we're used to now. And when I say what we're used to, I want to remind you that Bill Clinton was elected in 1992, Donald Trump in 2016, the year now is 2017, so for the last 25 years at least, we've had presidents who have not served in the military. So now, let's get a little bit more detailed. I want to ask you to turn to page 320 in your social studies books and follow along as I read paragraph 2. That's page 320. I'm going to read paragraph 2. Page 320, paragraph 2.
President Washington.
And it reads, the United States elected a president for the first time in 1789. The Constitution set up the system for elections. The states chose representatives for a group called the Electoral College. It was the job of the members of the Electoral College to vote for the president. Everyone in the first Electoral College agreed that George Washington was the only one for the job. Washington, however, was not sure he would succeed. He wrote, "My countrymen will expect too much from me." So George Washington, as we read, was elected in 1789, and he was elected by the Electoral College. So when we think of the first presidential election, it was not what our current presidential elections are like today. Now we know there are several candidates. They get together, they have debates, they run campaign commercials, they need voters, they win primaries, then there's a general election where the population votes, and the population votes for the president, and the electoral college, based on the votes from their population, picks the president. Now, when we think of how George Washington was elected, he was elected by the electoral college. Here's some breaking news to you. The electoral college has more power than the population. There have been elections where the electoral college has not voted the same way as the population, but the electoral college wins out. Now, when we see here, the electoral college is not made up of common people. The electoral college is made up of delegates, of other politicians. So, before last year, the most famous example of the electoral college electing a president was in the 2000 election where George W. Bush defeated Al Gore. Al Gore won the popular vote, but George W. Bush won the electoral college's vote. So he became president. Now, nobody in this room, except for the adults, were around at the time of that election. But here's how history affects you today. Last year, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but Donald Trump won the vote for the electoral college. And so, now today, Donald Trump is the president. So, you need to learn history because history affects you. It affects every individual in this room. Your president is not the one who won the popular vote last year. Your president is the one who won the electoral college. So now let's get back to George Washington. He mentioned that his countrymen would expect too much from him. He was nervous. Now let's think. Why was he nervous? George Washington was nervous because there had not been a president before him. He was going to be the first, which means that he had to set the tone. He had to be the example. He had to be the one that all future presidents followed behind. America was a brand new country. These people, the only political experience that they may have had was their little colonies that they had set up, their states. Now, this was one man seemingly in charge of an entire new country. You got to remember the purpose of the Constitutional Convention. All they wanted to do at first was discuss the Articles of Confederation. After the American Revolution, there was no president of the United States. The Articles of Confederation did not set up to have a president of the United States. It was the Constitution that set it up for there to be a president of the United States. So that's why George Washington was nervous. Now let's see what he did at his inauguration. Let's take our social studies books and turn to page 321.
Okay.
And follow along as I read paragraph 1. Page 321. And let's follow along as I read paragraph 1. In April 1789, Washington traveled to New York City, where the government met. He was greeted as a hero. An excited crowd watched his inauguration in New York City. An inauguration is an official ceremony to make someone president. Washington promised to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Every president since Washington has made the same promise. Every single one. So now, let's get a quick reminder on what an inauguration is. It's an official ceremony to make someone the president. Think about what happened currently. Donald Trump was elected president in November of 2016, but his inauguration did not take place until January of 2017. So he was not officially ruling as president until January of 2017. So now we think about all this pressure that's on Washington, right? He's the very first president. There's no one for him to look at as an example. The closest thing for him to look at as an example of a ruler of an entire country is King George III. And the United States, just 10 years earlier, had been in war with King George III. So he wasn't a good example. So let's see what was done for him. Let's take our social studies books and look back at page 321, and let's read paragraph 2. Congress created 3 departments to help the president run the executive branch. Washington chose people he trusted to run the departments. They were called secretary. Thomas Jefferson became Washington's Secretary of State. So what he did was he decided to form a group to delegate certain responsibilities, and that became known as his cabinet. And today, Donald Trump also has a cabinet. So here we can see that President Washington was a role model for all presidents to come behind him, and he set the example of how to be a president. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for your kind applause. That was a substitute part, and that was not easy. One thing that I will bring out about my own talk was that I paid very close attention to my timing. My timing was 9 minutes and 58 seconds. This is a 10-minute part. I'm proud that this is being recorded because this, what I just gave, is the example of how to do a public talk. So those of you who have future assignments, after today, you can get on YouTube and see an example of how to do a public talk. I was loud. I had information behind what I was saying. I waited until you all turned to the page. And my timing, 9 minutes, 58 seconds. I made effective use of my time. And I'm not able to do it just because I'm an adult. Don't let that be a deterrent. Even though you're 9 or 10, you can do just as good, if not a better job than what I did. 9 minutes, 58 seconds. Make effective use of your timing. I want to thank you guys again for your applause, and we're not going to wait so long. We're going to move to our second part. And this is the part where you all have been working all week to make sure that you have some very good comments prepared. And so we're going to ask our dear friend, Miss Cindy Grant, to handle the part digging for historical gems for us. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning. My name is Sydney Grant, and I'll be presenting the Digging for Historical Gems portion of our lesson. May I please have a volunteer to read page 320, paragraph 2? Charlie.
The United States elected a president for the first time in 1789. The Constitution set up the system for elections. The states chose representatives, a group called the Electoral College. It was a group of members of the Electoral College to vote for the president. Everyone in the first Electoral College agreed that George Washington was the only one for the job. Washington, however, was not sure he would succeed. He wrote, "My countrymen would expect too much from me." Washington knew his actions would set an example for other presidents to follow. He acted with thought and care.
Thank you. What was the Electoral College created to do? Mary Lane.
The Electoral College is job was to vote for president?
Ava.
It was the job where people had to vote for the president.
Thank you for those wonderful answers. My answer is, the Electoral College was created to elect the president. It was created on February 1st, 1777. May I please have another volunteer to read paragraphs 1 and 2 on page 322? Scarlett.
Two cabinet members, Hamilton and Jefferson, often disagreed. Hamilton wanted a strong national government that supported trade and manufacturing. Jefferson felt that the government should be limited so that it could not take away states' rights. He said it should support farming instead of trade. Jefferson and Hamilton both had followers who formed political parties. A political party is a group of people who share similar ideas about government. People supporting Jefferson formed the Democratic Republican Party. Hamilton's party was known as the Federalist Party.
Thank you. Why did the political parties form during George Washington's presidency? Claudia.
They formed so people could share similar and different ideas.
Ava.
They formed because they wanted to share similar ideas about the government.
Mary Lynn.
The political parties formed so people could share similar and different ideas about the government.
Thank you for all those wonderful answers. My answer is, the political parties formed during Washington's presidency because Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton did not agree with each other and they did not have followers. What does this week's reading teach you about history? Soren.
The Bill of Rights.
Mary Lynn.
This week's reading teaches me how Jefferson and Hamilton formed political parties and how political parties formed during George Washington's presidency.
Thank you for those wonderful answers. What points can you use from this week's reading to teach someone about this topic? Claudia.
I could teach that Jefferson wanted the nation's economy to help farmers who owned small plots of land. He felt that people should be as free of government control as possible. Hamilton believed that the nation would be stronger if its economy helped large businesses and trade. He thought that a strong government was necessary to keep order and make rules about trade.
Mary Lynn.
I can describe how Jefferson and Hamilton shared different and similar ideas. They called George Washington the most of the founding fathers. He also joined the militia army to prove to be an honest leader. Half of his troops died at Valley Forge, but with his strong bravery, the troop kept moving. He thought that slavery was wrong, but he owned a lot of slaves. He released them after he met Northerners such as Ben Franklin and John Adams.
Thank you for those wonderful answers. My answer is, there are several points I can use to teach someone about this topic. The first point is, representatives from each state who vote for the president make up the Electoral College. Also, the National Bank controls the money of the United States. A third point is, George Washington retired from the militia. Another point is, George Washington helped make the Bill of Rights. A final point is, he was the first president of the United States.
Well, boy, I know that Papa Grant back there is a proud, proud man. Can you put the camera? That's a happy dad right there. I thought that absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I don't have anything that I can ask you to get better at. All I have for you is just great comments, because what I saw during that part is when you started, I loved your volume and how you took the part very seriously. You know, yesterday when we rehearsed, you were a little bit quiet, you seemed a little nervous, and today you didn't seem nervous at all. You just locked in and you had it. And I really appreciate that. It's like how I often say with these digging parts, you children, y'all go from little playful Sydney, and I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna do my work, and everything's all beautiful, till you come up here, and it's, oh, this is Miss Grant. We need to pay attention. I felt like I needed to comment, you know? I mean, you were serious, and I really enjoy that, because that's a great aspect of teaching. You know, there's benefits to having fun and joking all the time, but then there's benefits to, hey, this is how things are going to be done, and we're here to learn. And I really like that about your part. Your visual contact with your audience, how you look at each person once you called on them, I really enjoyed that, because you made eye contact with them and made them feel special about their comment that they were giving. Your counsel point goes into that with visual contact. It says, look at those to whom you are speaking, allowing your eyes to meet for a few seconds. See individuals, not the whole group. You exemplified that. You gave people time. You waited to hear their answers. After they gave their answers, you let them know how proud you were of their answers by thanking them and saying, okay, that was a very nice point. And what I really took the most out of your part was how you are dressed. I mean, my goodness gracious. You can't, yeah, let's give a round of applause for that. You took it very seriously, your part. You woke up this morning, you put on, I don't know if that's your nicest dress. It's a very nice dress. You know, you got your hair done. Just very serious the way you took your part. And now to the audience, I really enjoyed the comments that I heard from the audience and the participation that I got from the audience. Some of you, going again with the first public speaking school, made sure to secure your superstar status. One person in particular that I was able to put in my notes, Claudia, with this awesome comment about Jefferson and Hamilton. The research that I saw that you did in your comment, it was not something that was brought out by the social studies book. I could tell that you went to the internet or you went to parents or something to help you come up with that comment, so I really enjoyed it. Also, I'd like to thank our parent in the back, because I can tell that he did some work with Miss Grant to make sure that her part went pretty well. And so I just want to give a big round of applause. That was a very nice digging for historical gems. And now, friends, we are almost already to the end. We have our very last part coming up, but it is a wonderful part given by a wonderful man. It is our historical reading taken from page 322. Let's invite up our dear friend, Mr. Aser Waldemichael, to take care of that part for us.
Mr. Eccles. There's so low batteries.
My name is Sarah Michael, and I'll be reading for historical reading about the arguments in the cabinet. Two cabinet members, Hamilton, Jefferson, often disagreed. Hamilton wanted a strong national government that supported trade and unification. Jefferson felt the government should be limited so that it could not take away states' rights. He said it should support farming instead of trade. Jefferson and Hamilton both followers who formed potential parties. A potential party is a group of people who share similar ideas about Jefferson forms about the government. People who support Jefferson formed the Democrat Republican Party. Hamilton's party was known as the Fellow's Party. Hamilton and Jefferson often gave the president opposite advice. For example, Hamilton wanted to start a national bank. He believed it would make the nation weatherly and stronger. Jefferson against the idea. He said that the government did not have the power to create the bank. Washington took Hamilton's advice. He approved the law to create a national bank. The national bank controlled the money of the United States customers, could keep money in saving accounts there. Today, a saving account is a way to earn money. The bank borrows from saving accounts to make loans. It earns money on the loans by charging the interest. Interest is what people pay to borrow money. The bank also pays interest for the use of money to each person who has a saving account. Hamilton and Jefferson compromised on some problems. Hamilton supported Jefferson's push to build a national Virginia capital of the Potomac River between Virginia and Merrigan. A capital is the city where the government meets. In return, Jefferson agreed Hamilton's plan to pay the nation's war debts.
Sarah, I thought that was a wonderfully done reading. I took some notes while I was listening to your reading, but before I was even able to take notes, what I noticed about your reading was that it was so fluent to me most of the time that it seemed like you weren't even reading. It seemed like you were just up here talking. And then when I looked up while I was taking notes, what I noticed was that during parts of your reading, you made sure to look up at your audience and you kept talking. And then when you looked down, you still knew where you were. So that showed me how much preparation, how much practice, again, how seriously you took this assignment. I really liked your reading. I really liked the emphasis that you put on certain words. You know, when you brought up Jefferson's name, you didn't just say, oh, Jefferson. Jefferson and Hamilton. You made sure to point them out because the section that you were reading was showing how they were important people. Again, the way that you prepared the assignment by being able to look at your audience, that is something that is very difficult to do, even for adults. So the fact that you're able to do it at such a young age shows that you have a promising future, because it's a hard skill to be able to read fluently in general. It's even a harder skill to be able to look up at an audience and still be able to read fluently and know where you're at. Your counsel point was accurate reading. There were very, very little mistakes that you made. I counted maybe one or two. So that shows that you really took the part seriously. And I am very grateful to you. I'm happy that you were able to do this part. I'm even happier that all of our students this evening, Sydney and Sarah, were able to do their part and that they took their part seriously. And I think we have another successful public speaking school on our hands. So let's give our students a round of applause. Because you guys have made it a very special time.